It was a perfect Sunday afternoon in Joplin, Missouri, May 22nd, 2011. The sun was warm, the sky a gentle blue, and the city moved at its usual relaxed weekend pace. Families filled the pews at morning services. Friends laughed over lunch at local restaurants, and at Joplin High School Stadium, 455 proud graduates stood in their caps and gowns, smiling for photos, dreaming about the futures stretching out in front of them. No one noticed the faint rumble of thunder far to the west. No one could have imagined that in just a few hours, this same city, their homes, their schools, their churches, would be unrecognizable. That this peaceful Sunday would become the deadliest day in Joplin's history, and the deadliest tornado strike in the United States in more than 60 years. Because out there on the plains, something monstrous was waking up, and it was already moving straight toward them. The clock was already ticking.
The National Weather Service.
By 8 a.m. that Sunday, meteorologists at the National Weather Service office in Springfield were staring at their computer screens with growing concern. What had looked like a routine spring day on the models was rapidly turning into something far worse. A powerful low-pressure system had dropped out of South Dakota the day before, dragging with it perfect ingredients for violent weather. At 1:30 p.m. Central Time, the Storm Prediction Center issued a tornado watch for all of southwestern Missouri. But in Joplin, life continued as normal. Then, at 5:11 p.m., the city's tornado sirens screamed to life for the first time. 17 minutes later, at 5:17 p.m., the National Weather Service issued the official tornado warning. The message was clear. A large and dangerous tornado was on the ground and heading straight for Joplin. Weather radios across the city began broadcasting the urgent alert. Residents had exactly 29 minutes. 29 minutes between the first siren and the moment the tornado would touch down. A second round of sirens blared at 5:31 p.m., as if trying to wake the city up. Yet for too many people, those sirens had cried wolf too many times before. Some turned down the volume on their radios. Others stepped outside to look at the sky, curious but not yet afraid. A few simply kept eating dinner, convinced it would pass them by, just like it always had.
Please.
Right now,
please,
I am telling you to take cover.
Take cover right now.
We do have a
Folks,
tornado on the ground.
This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous situation.
They had no idea the countdown had already reached its final seconds, and that the monster was now less than 10 miles away and accelerating. But how does a city like Joplin go from a quiet Sunday afternoon to near annihilation in under an hour? It starts with the atmosphere itself, turning into a loaded gun. Now add the three classic ingredients for a killer tornado. First, extreme instability. Meteorologists call it CAPE, convective available potential energy. On May 22nd, the numbers were off the charts. The air was so buoyant that once it started rising, it would shoot upward like a rocket. Second, massive wind shear. Winds near the surface blowing from the southeast, while higher up they screamed in from the southwest at nearly twice the speed. That change in direction and speed with height gives the storm its spin, its helicity, the twisting motion that turns an ordinary thunderstorm into a rotating monster. And third, that rich Gulf moisture, feeding the storm like gasoline on a fire. By 8 a.m. that Sunday, the National Weather Service had already upgraded a huge swath of the Midwest to a moderate risk, a rare early warning that something big was coming. 5:34 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Storm chasers, now pacing the tornado from a safe distance, could see the change happening in real time. Their urgent live updates and video feeds were feeding directly into the warning process, giving forecasters on the ground extra eyes where radar sometimes struggled. Yet the city of Joplin was still only minutes away. The tornado had just taken its first real breath, and it was already growing hungrier. The quiet rural fields west of town would soon give way to neighborhoods, schools, and hospitals, and the monster was picking up speed. The open countryside disappeared in an instant. The tornado crossed the invisible line into the city limits of Joplin, and it did not slow down. In the space of just 60 to 120 seconds, the funnel underwent a terrifying transformation. What had been a strengthening but still somewhat contained vortex suddenly ballooned outward. The rotation tightened, the inflow wind screamed louder, and the damage rating shot upward.
This is a Joplin storm chaser. I have a large destructive tornado and on the southwest side of Joplin. Notified, large tornado on the ground doing massive damage. It's tearing up the entire city on the south side of Joplin right now. This is Joplin, and it's a massive tornado doing massive destruction.
EF3. It struck first near the Twin Hills Country Club in the southwestern corner of Joplin. Golf course trees that had stood for generations were uprooted and hurled like spears. Then it marched straight into the quiet subdivisions just east of Iron Gates Road. Dozens of well-built family homes stood directly in its path. The next moment, roofs were ripped completely off. Exterior walls exploded outward, and entire second stories were sheared away. Cars parked in driveways were lifted straight into the air. The monster had officially entered Joplin, and it was still accelerating, still widening, still hungry for more. The worst sections of the city lay directly ahead.
Take a look. I mean, it's everything is just completely demolished. I mean, homes are destroyed, families' lives have been turned upside down at this point, and people are just looking for their loved ones. They're looking for family members. If you take a look here at this neighborhood, all I can say is it looks very reminiscent of what we saw last month in... It's tough. No question about that.
I can't find any gloves. I tried to dig through my garage stuff just so I could find some gloves.
Yeah.
So I could dig without tearing my hands up.
Well, we'll see if we can help you out there. I know that the firefighters are really the neighborhood up here as well. You say really has been hit hard. Some folks actually may have been home, and a lot of these. What's the name of this road?
This is 26th Street.
The first unmistakable signature of that unimaginable power appeared in the parking lots just beyond the avenue. Several 300-pound concrete parking stops, each one anchored deep into the ground with heavy rebar, were ripped out as if they were made of styrofoam. Engineer Partha Sarkar of the University of Iowa would later calculate that only winds exceeding 200 miles per hour, well over 320 kilometers per hour, could have torn those 100-kilogram blocks free and hurled them 55 meters through the air.
It is really, I mean, as you said, it's obviously horrific. What you do, maybe the pictures don't show, is just the weather that is still, the weather system that is still affecting this area is making it very difficult for those who are out searching for people who may still be alive, trapped underneath the rubble. It is cold here. There has been a driving rain here throughout the day, severe thunderstorms, major lightning. We've seen huge lightning strikes all around us over the last several hours, and the bad weather period is expected to continue into tomorrow. Whoa, huge bolts of lightning just there. I don't know if you saw any of them behind me. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, what this does for anybody who may be trapped.
Now the building was reduced to twisted steel beams and concrete dust. Steel guardrails from nearby roads were driven deep into the ground like spears. Large pieces of the structure were carried hundreds of feet and dropped in adjacent fields. This was no random path of destruction. This was a direct, calculated march through the places that defined the community. A nursing home full of the city's most vulnerable. A technical college training its future workers.
At Joplin's Home Depot, the search and rescue personnel from Missouri Task Force 1 have not found anyone alive. they've only found bodies.
Everything that we did yesterday were recoveries, and we completed 7 of those.
Or do you think there are more people still inside?
We have some indications by canine alerts that, yeah, we think we have some people underneath those slabs.
Do you think they may be alive still? Or?
I think it's unlikely that they're alive.
Mothers, fathers, grandparents, teachers, students, all caught in the same violent storm that had already claimed lives at St. John's and on Schifferdecker Avenue. The tornado kept moving, still at full EF5 intensity, still widening, still hungry. But in those few terrifying minutes along Main Street, Joplin lost more than buildings. It lost part of its soul, and the monster was nowhere near finished. The tornado had already carved a path of EF5 annihilation through the western half of Joplin. Now it reached the busiest commercial corridor in the city, and it became something the meteorology textbooks had never seen. Between 13th Street and 32nd Street, along Range Line Road, the funnel exploded to its absolute maximum width, nearly 1.6 kilometers. 1 mile of pure destruction, stretching from one side of the horizon to the other. Heavily rain-wrapped, black as night, and moving with terrifying purpose. And then, in the middle of all this commercial carnage, the tornado found the Pizza Hut on South Range Line Road. Manager Christopher Lucas had just minutes to act. He herded 4 employees and 15 customers into the walk-in freezer at the back of the restaurant.
The only reason we survived is because he held the door shut with a strap. He ran in and grabbed this bungee cord, wrapped it around, and was holding it. And as soon as I saw the door start to slip, I grabbed him. I tried to grab for the handle, but there's no handle on the other side. And I grabbed him. I was holding on with one hand with the cable, but on him, he was holding it mostly. And then when everything blew away, he was gone, the door was gone, everything.
Everything except the lives a father of 2 died to save.
The door wouldn't close properly. Without hesitation, Lucas wrapped a rubber strap around his hand and held the door shut with every ounce of strength he had left. He kept that door closed as the building disintegrated around them.
He loved the feeling of catching a fish whenever it'd bite the line, bringing it back in. That was the best feeling in the world to him.
Still, this 26-year-old felt strongly about taking care of others, especially his girlfriend, Brooke Prater.
He just had a general care for everybody. It's part of his connection to God. He was a God-fearing man, and he had a compassion for everybody.
The tornado had already devoured the commercial heart of Joplin along Range Line Road. Now it turned its full EF5 fury toward the southeastern edge of the city and delivered its final, most brutal punch. At the intersection of 20th Street and Duquesne Road, the monster slammed directly into the industrial park. This was the last segment of the storm's life, where it would maintain its absolute catastrophic intensity.
That was a big power flash. It could be lightning too. Could be lightning, yeah.
I think it's too low to be lightning.
The light's very, very low. Oh my God, that's power flashes.
Oh,
that's lots of power flashes.
It's like power flashes.
We need to get out of this town. Holy, oh my God, right there.
Where?
The tornado that had torn through Joplin for nearly 25 minutes of absolute EF5 fury finally began to lose its grip. East of the industrial park, the black wedge started to narrow. The rotation, once violent enough to scour asphalt, was slowing. Intensity dropped to EF3 to EF4. Homes on the eastern edge were still being shredded, but total annihilation had passed. East Middle School lost its roof and walls, yet somehow held, sparing lives. By 6:05 p.m., it reached the I-44/US 71 interchange. Even at EF2 to EF3 strength, the storm still swept cars and trucks off the highway. But the full EF5 fury was gone. The tornado kept sliding east-southeast, left the city behind, and moved into open countryside. Its forward speed had been agonizingly slow across Joplin, only about 10 miles per hour. But out in the rural fields, that same slow crawl continued as the power faded fast to EF0 to EF1. At 6:12 p.m. exactly, it was over. 38 minutes of life, 21.6 miles of path, 1 mile of maximum width. The deadliest single tornado to strike the United States in more than 60 years. Almost immediately after the roar faded, one question refused to die. Was this tornado truly an EF5? The NWS pushed back. Bill Davis, head of the Springfield office, was clear. That doesn't surprise us at all. There was just a very small area of EF5 damage in Joplin. We knew it was an EF4 right off the bat. It took a little longer to identify the EF5 damage. That small area, they insisted, was centered near St. John's Regional Medical Center. Only 5 of the 28 standard EF scale damage indicators are robust enough to record true EF5 wins, things like well-engineered hospitals. Most homes simply cannot survive long enough to tell the full story. Instead, the NWS relied on powerful non-standard evidence. 300-pound concrete parking stops bolted down with rebar, torn out and thrown 55 meters. 100-pound manhole covers ripped from the streets. Asphalt scoured clean from Walmart and Home Depot parking lots. Reinforced concrete porches and driveways peeled away. Large vehicles, buses, vans, tractor trailers, thrown hundreds of meters and wrapped around trees. The sheer scale of rolling debris across fields. None of this was on the official EF scale checklist, but it told a story that could not be ignored.
Mark Norton survived the Joplin tornado. His 18-year-old son, Will, did not.
If we'd have been 5 seconds sooner, we would have been past it.
They were driving home from Will's high school graduation, less than a minute from home.
As he was pulling over, and stopping the vehicle, I can remember him praying and reciting scripture. And he kept praying. I remember thinking, gosh, he is so scared, but and I had my arm on him, and but during that time, all the windows were blown out. There was pieces of plumbing and junk and steel going through the car, and it was picking us up and throwing us on the top like 3 different times, and I don't know when I actually lost it.
That same night, Governor Jay Nixon activated the Missouri National Guard and sent them straight into Joplin. By morning, he was walking the devastated streets. 5 days later, President Barack Obama flew into the city, stood among the survivors, spoke at the memorial service, and promised that America would not forget Joplin. When the sirens finally fell silent, the raw numbers began to speak. 158 people were killed directly by the tornado. Another 8 to 9 would die later from their injuries, bringing the final toll to 161 souls. More than 1,150 others were injured, many for life. Nearly 1/3 of the entire city of Joplin was destroyed. 2,000 buildings were completely wiped from the map. Another 8,000 were damaged so severely they would never be the same. 7,500 residential homes took direct hits. 4,000 of those were reduced to nothing but concrete slabs and scattered splinters. 15,000 vehicles were mangled beyond recognition. Over 553 commercial properties were obliterated, wiping out roughly 4,000 jobs in a single afternoon. The financial cost was $2.8 billion in 2011 dollars, roughly $4 billion today. That single figure made the Joplin tornado the costliest individual tornado in United States history. 3 million cubic yards of debris had to be hauled away, enough to fill more than 2,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. 17,000 of Joplin's 50,000 residents were directly affected. 54% of the victims had been inside residential buildings. 32% were inside businesses or public structures. 14% were caught in vehicles or completely exposed. Because it was a Sunday evening, thousands of people were on the roads, returning from church, from restaurants, from that very graduation ceremony. The tornado lifted at 6:12 p.m. on May 22, 2011. But for the people of Joplin, the storm never really ended. In the months and years that followed, 18 residents took their own lives. Domestic violence reports spiked sharply across the city. 41% of Joplin's people, more than 20,000 men, women, and children, were diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or full-blown PTSD. 5 more lives were claimed by a rare fungal infection. Spores stirred up by the tornado had been driven deep into open wounds by flying debris. Today, when you drive through the rebuilt neighborhoods of Joplin, you still see the scars if you know where to look. Empty lots where homes once stood. Newer buildings standing stronger and lower to the ground. But you also see something else. A city that refused to disappear. A city that turned the worst day in its history into a warning for the rest of the country. The EF5 wedge is gone. The debate over its exact strength continues in scientific papers, but the legacy of Joplin lives on in stronger building codes, better warning systems, sharper disaster response, and in the unbreakable determination of the people who survived it. They did not just rebuild their city, they helped change how America protects its people from the next monster that will inevitably come. Because on May 22, 2011, Joplin did not only suffer history's 7th deadliest tornado, it helped write the rules so that future generations might not have to suffer the same way. That is the true, enduring power of what happened here.